Hello. So this is my router PC. Yeah, I'm running pfSense on it. Well, why? Well, I just want to, and it's a lot better than the regular Wi-Fi routers out there. But anyway, I upgraded some stuff, or the case at least, because I was running this motherboard and CPU in a very old case. It's like at least 20 years old, an old Antec case. It's like white beige color. It's not as beige as the fans here, but almost. More white than beige actually. And it's got like 80mm fans in it, and or room for 80mm fans. But I didn't even have the case fans in it, so I was running it with an open door thing. Anyway, I decided to upgrade the case to my main PC. So I got this case sort of left over, empty. So I thought, well, let's put my router hardware in here, in this one. And I also got 2 extra fans at the top. I didn't have that before. So yeah, there are 3 fans in here. Well, the name of the case, let's first. It's the Fractal design Pop XL Air. I always say it like Pop Air XL. But anyway, it's the Pop XL Air or Fractal design. And yeah, this case have normally a glass side cover here, but I took it off. In this case, it doesn't really matter because this computer will be in a different room, just running 24/7. Yeah, so it's got a lot better cooling. Yeah, you can see it. There are 3 fans in the front and 3 sort of at the back. So the back and top fans are 140mm, and the 3 at the front is 120mm fans, and they are all from Noctua. Yeah, I'm a fan of Noctua fans because I've been having them in the other computer, and it's really quiet and cool as well. So yeah, that's the case, the upgrade. So this computer will have a lot better cooling. Not that it's running hot. But anyway, the motherboard and the CPU and stuff, it's really old. This is from like 2015. So it's 2024 right now when I record this video. So it's 9 years old. And it was actually from my first PC that got UEFI BIOS. Yeah, and this is sort of a budget motherboard. And yeah, I noticed that when I was installing the fans, because the motherboard only have 3 fan headers, and one of them is for the CPU. So the other 2 are for the case fans. Not much when you have like 6 fans. But anyway, the motherboard is from Asus. It's the Z170-P. And the CPU on it is the Intel i5 6600K. and it got 16 gigabyte of DDR4 RAM, just a standard 2133 memory. It doesn't need more for this routing, the router software. This is pretty much overkill for pfSense, but yeah, I like to have overkill stuff. I'd rather have overkill than underkill, if you know what I mean. So, and the reason actually I am running this as a sort of router instead was that Microsoft decided that you can't run Windows 11 with this CPU. You need at least an 8th gen CPU from Intel. This is the 6th gen CPU. So yeah, I decided that sure, I can run Windows 10, but it's 2024 now, and Windows 10 will be end of life next year in 2025. So no more updates and stuff. So I thought, well, let's go the Linux route. So I decided either running Linux, like on a desktop, or run some kind of server. And I decided with pfSense as a router because I like to test the networking stuff. pfSense is not really Linux. It's actually based on FreeBSD. And it's basically a fork of BSD. And BSD and Linux is not the same thing. They are similar, but you know, same, but different. So yeah, pfSense router. And I put the link in the video description about the specs if you want to read more about that, and also some images, some pictures. Yeah, the motherboard itself doesn't have really that many ports and stuff on it because it's a budget motherboard, basically. So, for example, the fan headers, there's one at the top and one kind of right here above the top network card. And then we have the CPU on top there. And the CPU cooler is just a regular cooler master. Simple CPU cooler. It's got a 92 millimeter fan on it. It's actually really quiet. So yeah. So what I did here was to, since it's only got two headers for the case fans, these 140 millimeter fans includes one extension cable and one splitter cable. And I actually had to use those splitters. And I think I had to borrow another one from another fan that I have. So the three 140 millimeter fans here in the back are connected to this one port back there. And the three in the front is connected to the top there. So yeah, it actually works. I powered it on and it works. I thought it would be too much for the motherboard for each port, but it seems to work just fine. So yeah, and so that was a bit tricky. I'm not going to show you the backside because yeah, it's just a bunch of case cable or fan cables. And yeah, there's nothing much. The power supply is just a regular 550 watt supply from Corsair. I think it's called CV550. Just go to my website, everything is there. And yeah, there's nothing much. Two network cards, they are 1 gigabit each. and they are from Intel because they work sort of better with pfSense. And they are, I don't remember what they're exactly called. It's on the website, but I think it's called like CT desktop adapter or something. So just the regular 1 gigabit network cards. I got 500 megabit internet connection. It's a fiber connection. I also enabled the network on the motherboard. It's on the back there. So right now, I think the top card, internet is coming in to the top card, and then it routes to the bottom card. So this will be my sort of local network, my LAN. So it's WAN and LAN. And the built-in on the motherboard, it's a Realtek network, and that's an optional network in pfSense. And it's a completely separate network from the LAN. So the LAN got its own DHCP server. Same thing with the Realtek. The optional got its own DHCP server, so it's completely separate. You can't access anything by default with the optional. I set it so the optional can only access the internet, not the LAN. So you can have, like, for example, the optional network can be like your guest network and connect like a Wi-Fi access point to it. And yeah, so you can have your friends and whatever can use your guest network. So there's stuff like that. So that's the only reason I have the Realtek, the motherboard network activated. I disabled the audio and stuff because I try to minimize the power usage. Right now it consumes somewhere between 30 and 40 watts. And you can see that I don't have a graphics card either. That's one of the reasons I try to save power, because the graphics card will be like 30, 40 watts or whatever, just doing nothing. So I actually use the built-in graphics in the CPU. And the motherboard have a port on the back, or 2 ports for graphics. 1 DVI actually, and 1 HDMI port. And I got an old Dell monitor, 17-inch, that actually got the DVI port input, so I used the DVI port on this one. So yeah. So that's that. Nothing much else to say, I think. Yeah, I did connect on the top front, you have the power button and USB ports, also some audio. So I actually did connect the audio connector, but I disabled the audio, so it doesn't really matter. And then we have this black cable here, that's USB 3, and that goes up to the top as well. And then we have a little power button cable there, so I can turn it on or whatever. And then we have 4 SATA ports. I only use 2 of them, and they are connected to a hard drive bay in the front, bottom front here. You can't really see it. So I got 2 really old Intel SSDs. It's the X25M drives. They are 160 gigabyte each. They are just SATA 2 drives, but they are fast enough for pfSense at least. And both of them are used because when you install pfSense, you get the option to run the drives in a software RAID 1 or 0. I run them in software RAID 1. So if one of them fails, the system is still running. And I also back up the settings that I have in pfSense. You can export the settings you have. So if you have to reinstall everything, I can easily just import that back up again, and I'm good to go. So that's that. Nothing else really. Yeah, the power supply is not it's not modular. So every single power cable is connected. So there's a bunch of power cables underneath here. And the only cables the motherboard need when it comes to power is the 24 pin and the one CPU, 12 volts up in the corner. My main machine is a bit newer, so it has actually two CPU connectors up there. But yeah, this is sort of budget stuff. Yeah, and of course, memory, the RAM. I got 4 DIMM modules. They are 4 gigabyte each. So in total, 16 gigabyte of RAM. So I have a, in my NAS, I got 128 gigabyte of RAM. I did an upgrade. So the 64 gigabyte I had before is now kind of useless. And I tried to install those DDR4 64 gigabyte kit onto this motherboard. It's the same DDR4, same speed, 2133, CL15, same specs, but and the motherboard or the CPU can handle 64 gigs, but the computer didn't want to boot. I never got past the BIOS test, so nothing just happened. The fans were spinning, but nothing happened. So I switched back to this 4 gigabyte modules, and yeah, it booted up again. So yeah, it was the 64 gigabyte kit that doesn't work really. And it doesn't matter either because pfSense doesn't really need that much RAM. I just thought it would be funny to have like 64 gigs on a router because you can install a bunch of plugins and stuff on pfSense. So the more plugins you have, the more RAM it will take up. Because I think actually pfSense is actually running everything in RAM. So when you boot the computer up, it will load everything into RAM, and everything is running there. The only time it will actually use the drives is to boot up the system, and also when you save settings, it will write those settings to the drives. So the drives aren't really used that much. Most things are done in RAM. But it's pretty fast anyway, so yeah, it's pretty overkill. I'm not going to show you the front either. Well, I kind of can. Let's see if it works. Also need to move the light a little bit, something like this maybe. So let's see if we can get something here. Yeah, I don't really see that much, perhaps. Let's pull it out a little bit like this, maybe. Yeah, the fans, 3 fans at the top, and then at the bottom, you got the drive bay over here with 6. You can have total 6 drives. Right now, it's just the 2 top ones there. And then you have this extra little case here you can pull out. And you can store stuff in it. So yeah, that's the front. There's nothing much in the back, just 2 network ports and yeah, and the back plane of the motherboard. So nothing interesting. So yeah, this is my router, and yeah, it have a glass pane, but it doesn't really matter. I have taken it off. So yeah, that's it for now. So catch you later.